There's a moment almost everyone experiences, but few remember clearly. You do everything right. You show up prepared. You speak honestly. You follow the rules you were taught. And still, the outcome goes to someone else. Not because they were better, not because they worked harder, but because they understood something you didn't. That moment is usually explained away as bad luck, or politics, or unfairness. But it's not random, it's structural. Modern life doesn't reward sincerity the way people assume it does. It rewards perception, timing, restraint, and positioning. And once you see that pattern, you can't unsee it. Most people spend their lives reacting to the surface of situations. A tone, a comment, a delay, a look. They respond emotionally, instantly, publicly. And in doing so, they give away the only leverage they had. The people who quietly rise don't fight harder. They don't explain more. They don't reveal faster. They wait. Imagine two employees in the same office, both competent, both ambitious, both overlooked. One reacts to every slight, questions decisions, tries to prove value out loud, sends long messages explaining intentions. The other does something strange. They say less. They observe how decisions are actually made, not how they're described in meetings. They notice who speaks last. They notice whose silence ends discussions. They notice which mistakes are ignored and which are punished. While others argue about fairness, this person maps reality. That difference alone changes everything. Because power is not loud, it's patient. And patience creates space to think. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. The world is not arranged to reward transparency. It is arranged to reward those who understand how information moves. Every interaction is an exchange. Words, silence, timing, presence. And most people overpay. They answer questions that were never meant to help them. They reveal motivations that weaken their position. They explain themselves into predictability, not because they're foolish, but because they were taught that clarity equals honesty, and honesty equals safety. It doesn't. Clarity creates exposure. Exposure creates vulnerability. And vulnerability is only safe when you control the context. Watch how people with influence speak. They rarely give full explanations. They don't rush to fill silence. They let others talk themselves into conclusions. This isn't deception, it's restraint. When someone asks them a direct question, they often respond sideways. Not evasive, selective. They reveal enough to function, but never enough to be boxed in. That small difference changes how others treat them. People listen more closely. They speculate. They assign depth. The mind fills gaps on its own. And once someone is busy interpreting you, they're no longer controlling you. Now shift scenes. Picture a group of friends planning something simple. A trip, a project, a decision. One person needs approval. They push, they persuade, they emotionally invest. Another seems calm either way. Guess who ends up with the final say? The one who isn't afraid of the outcome. Attachment creates urgency. Urgency creates pressure. Pressure makes behavior readable, and readable behavior is easy to manage. The person who could walk away always holds more ground, even if they say nothing about it. This isn't about being cold. It's about not being cornered by your own desires. When you stop needing a specific outcome to feel secure, your nervous system changes. You listen better. You react slower. You see options others miss. That internal shift is visible, even if you never announce it. People sense when you're not desperate. They treat you differently. There's another layer most people misunderstand. They believe influence comes from being consistent, showing the same personality everywhere, all the time. That's comforting but ineffective. Different environments reward different signals. You don't speak to a judge the same way you speak to a friend. You don't negotiate the same way you socialize. Yet many people cling to a single mode of expression and call it authenticity. Real authenticity isn't rigidity. It's coherence. The core remains stable. The expression adapts. The people who move easily between social hierarchies understand this intuitively. They don't fake personalities. They emphasize different facets. With analytical people, they slow down and structure. With emotional people, they validate first. With authority figures, they compress language and remove excess. Everyone feels understood around them, and feeling understood creates trust. Trust creates access, Access creates opportunity. Here's where things turn uncomfortable. Most influence doesn't come from persuasion. It comes from positioning. The person who solves problems quietly becomes essential. The person who listens without reacting becomes a reference point. The person who speaks last frames conclusions. None of this requires domination. It requires timing. Think about silence. Most people fear it. They rush to fill it with explanations, jokes, clarifications. But silence is not emptiness. It's pressure. In conversations, the person comfortable with silence controls the tempo. In negotiations, silence forces the other side to reveal priorities. In conflict, silence denies emotional escalation. You don't need to threaten. Your stillness does the work. Over time, people begin to adjust their behavior around you. They explain themselves more. They seek your reaction. They look for signals. You've become a reference without asking to be one. This is how quiet leverage is built, not by forcing outcomes, but by becoming unavoidable. There's a psychological reason this works. Human beings are constantly scanning for stability. In uncertain environments, we anchor to those who appear regulated, deliberate, and unreactive. Emotionally noisy people feel risky. Measured people feel safe. Safety attracts power. But there's a boundary that matters. None of this works if it's used to harm. Strategic intelligence without ethical limits becomes corrosive to others and eventually to the person using it. The point is not to manipulate. It's to avoid being manipulated. The person who understands how reactions are provoked stops reacting on cue. The person who understands how narratives form stops explaining prematurely. The person who understands how outcomes are shaped stops arguing about appearances. They focus on results. Not winning conversations, not proving points, not being liked by everyone. Results. That focus changes decisions. Arguments become optional. Ego battles lose appeal. Energy gets conserved for moments that matter. You stop responding to everything and start selecting responses. And selection is power. Here's the realization most people reach too late. The game is being played whether you participate consciously or not. You can stumble through it emotionally. Or you can see the mechanics. Seeing doesn't make you ruthless. It makes you prepared. Prepared to pause instead of explode. Prepared to listen instead of defend. Prepared to move quietly while others burn energy being visible. This kind of intelligence doesn't announce itself. It accumulates. And when pressure arrives, betrayal, competition, loss, it doesn't collapse. It adapts. Why being good often fails strategically. And how outcomes quietly override intentions in real power dynamics. But for now, notice this. The most dangerous mistake isn't trusting people. It's assuming the system runs on fairness instead of incentives. Once you understand incentives, you stop being surprised by outcomes. And surprise is where most people lose control. Most people believe power rewards virtue. Work hard, be honest, treat people well. And eventually things will balance out. That belief is comforting and deeply misleading because power does not evaluate intentions. It responds to outcomes. This is where many intelligent, well-meaning people get trapped. They confuse moral identity with strategic effectiveness. They assume that because their motives are clean, their results should be too. Reality doesn't work that way. Imagine a manager who avoids difficult decisions because they want to be fair to everyone. They delay confrontation. They soften feedback. They tolerate small problems to preserve harmony. Over time, those small problems grow. The team loses trust. High performers disengage. Standards quietly drop. The manager didn't fail morally. They failed structurally. Power systems punish hesitation, not cruelty. This is the uncomfortable layer most people avoid thinking about. Good intentions don't protect you from consequences. Only awareness does. The people who rise in complex environments understand something subtle. They don't ask, does this make me look good? They ask, what does this produce over time? That shift changes behavior completely. Sometimes the most humane decision looks harsh in the moment. Sometimes restraint appears cold before it proves stabilizing. Sometimes silence does more good than reassurance. This isn't about abandoning ethics. It's about recognizing that ethical action often requires strength, not softness. Here's where perception matters. Human beings judge morality visually and emotionally. They respond to tone, confidence, and certainty more than logic. This is why leaders who appear decisive are often forgiven for mistakes, while hesitant leaders are punished even when correct. Certainty signals safety, and safety attracts compliance. That's why people who hesitate to appear too controlling often lose control entirely. Now consider how people read you. They are not evaluating your values. They are interpreting your signals, your speed, your confidence, your boundaries. When you explain yourself too much, people sense doubt. When you apologize excessively, people sense instability. When you overexpose your reasoning, people test it. This isn't because people are malicious. It's because humans probe structure. Every system is tested for weakness, unconsciously. The moment you appear uncertain about your own position, others begin negotiating internally. That's why controlled exposure matters. Not everyone needs access to your thinking process. Not everyone deserves full transparency. Not every truth needs immediate expression. Information is not virtue. It's leverage. Once released, it can't be retrieved. This is especially visible in the digital age. People document their emotions in real time. They broadcast frustration. They announce plans prematurely, and then they wonder why they're predictable. Predictability makes you easy to manage. When people know what you fear losing, they know where to press. When they know what you want badly, they know how to delay. When they know your internal state, they adjust around it. The people who maintain ambiguity don't do so out of secrecy, but out of discipline. They understand timing. The same information, delivered at different moments, produces entirely different outcomes. A skill revealed too early becomes expected. A strength revealed under pressure becomes respected. Now let's talk about influence without force. Most people think influence is persuasion, convincing others through arguments, logic, or passion. But persuasion is inefficient. It requires energy, it invites resistance, it creates winners and losers. The strongest influence works differently. It reshapes incentives. When you become valuable without being loud about it, people adjust their behavior voluntarily. They include you. They consult you. They protect you. Not because you demanded it, but because it serves them. This is why the most influential person in a group is often not the most vocal. It's the one others don't want to lose. Value creates gravity, and gravity doesn't need announcements. This is also why emotional control is misunderstood. People think emotional control means suppressing feelings. It doesn't. It means not letting feelings dictate timing. Anger expressed immediately loses strategic value. Frustration broadcast publicly weakens position. Reaction invites counterreaction. The person who waits gains options. They can choose response, not reflex. This is visible everywhere. In text conversations, the person who responds instantly reveals priority. In conflict, the person who stays calm forces recalibration. In negotiations, the person who can pause without anxiety resets the frame. Emotional regulation isn't about being numb. It's about staying available to think. Now here's the turning point most people miss. Understanding power dynamics does not make you cynical. It makes you precise. You stop personalizing outcomes. You stop being shocked by behavior. You stop expecting fairness from systems that reward leverage. That clarity reduces resentment. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? You start asking, what signals did I miss? That question restores agency. It allows correction. This is where outcome focus becomes essential. Outcome-focused people don't waste energy defending identity. They don't need to be seen as right, good, or superior in the moment. They care about trajectory. Where is this leading? What does this produce next month? What does this stabilize long-term? Because winning arguments is cheap. Winning positioning compounds. Outcome focus also changes how you learn. Instead of collecting information endlessly, you extract what moves the needle. Instead of copying others blindly, you observe patterns. What behavior consistently works? What reactions consistently fail? What signals change outcomes without conflict? You become selective, and selectivity creates efficiency. But there's a warning here. When people discover these dynamics, they often swing too far. They become guarded, distant, calculating in every interaction. That backfires. Power without connection isolates. Strategy without humanity erodes trust. The most effective people integrate both. They are warm but not porous, calm but not passive, open but not exposed. They choose when to engage deeply and when to hold back. That balance is what makes them difficult to manipulate and easy to respect. This is the final distinction. Dark intelligence is not about controlling others. It's about controlling leakage. Leakage of emotion, leakage of information, leakage of energy. Once leakage stops, clarity appears. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of chase. You move instead of explain. And slowly your environment changes. People test you less. They listen more. They adapt, not because you demanded it, because your behavior trained them. That is how power actually works. Quietly, incrementally, without permission. In the final part, we'll bring everything together, how these principles combine, how to practice them without becoming rigid, and how to use strategic intelligence to build stability rather than conflict. Because the goal was never dominance. The goal was freedom, and freedom begins the moment you stop being predictable to systems that don't care about you. If you're ready, we'll finish this properly. Below are direct Google search phrases you can copy-paste. They are written to match documentary, psychological, cinematic visuals for part 1 plus part 2. I've structured this scene by scene, following the emotional flow of both scripts, not line by line. So, visuals feel cohesive, premium and intelligent, not random stock footage. Use Google Images, Pexels, Unsplash, or Adobe Stock with the